So I encourage all of you to take a deep breath. And for all of you that were listening, that was my dog that just yelled.
Yes. Yeah, that wasn't me squealing.
Yeah.
Welcome to the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education.
We were just talking
weekly.
off air before we started rolling here, and we really started to talk about and discuss, that prospecting when it comes to real estate. A lot of the times real estate agent is word of mouth referral. From as much as I know about the business, I have a few friends in real estate, and their big sales I find come from a referral situation. One person talks to another. I would look at it and I'd say to myself, for starters anyways, let's start on that note. How do you guys go about getting referrals? Do you actually ask for the referrals? Do you have a process? Do you have a strategy? Do you kind of have a framework that you set up for your agents and yourself when it comes to that?
Yeah, absolutely. We call it basically it's overkill over time. We want to be the brand awareness when our sphere of influence, or the people that we have in our database, and by the way, we don't refer to it as a database anymore. I have right here on my computer. It's not a database, it's a data bank. Because the size and quality of our database will be in direct proportion to the size and quality of our income. So the better we take care of the people that know us already, that have done business with us, that typically like us, the more we take care of them, the better they'll take care of us. So we do that. Overkill over time is something we call 33 touch. And in essence, it's touching base with them 33 times over the course of a year, every year. And
when you say 33 times, are you talking a present customer, a past customer, or a prospect?
So I appreciate you differentiating that. In our world, it's somebody that we have met. They don't necessarily have been a customer. Of course, it would be a past sale. That would be someone who would be in that database. It could be friends, it could be family, it could be acquaintances, someone who would know me. If I walked into the grocery store, they would say, "Hey, Sean, how you doing?" They would recognize me, okay? Someone who I've done business with. Not some just random name in the phone book, yet it would be somebody who knows me. So we call that a met database, someone who I've met before. They've met me. They know I'm in real estate, and we've got maybe not a strong relationship, yet there's a relationship. And we want to build that as large as we possibly can. And because with tracking and measuring, we know by moving forward in a 33 touch, and that's going to be 12 direct mails. That's going to be 12 newsletter emails. So right there's 24. It's going to be 4 phone calls on a quarterly basis. Right there, we're at 28. And then a couple social media direct messages or a birthday or holiday greeting card, whatever the case may be, just drop by their home, to offer them a gift of value or something.
Okay.
So those are the type of things that we do to just stay top of mind. So when our database thinks of real estate, they think of us. In essence, brand awareness.
That's interesting, and I like that. I like the fact that you've got a multitude of different levels that you're connecting. A lot of the times when a lot of my students, I say, okay, well, you know what, you got to connect in 6 different ways is kind of what I share with them, right? And I talk about phone calls, I talk about emails, I talk about reference letters, I talk about client visits, meetings, I talk about social media, and I talk about articles. And I say, you can connect with customers or prospects even if there's an article. So you and I have a conversation, tomorrow, the next day, I find an article with references to some of the points we talked about in our conversation. I would fire you that article and I'd say, hey, this is a great article. It kind of reminds me of our conversation we had yesterday. Just thought you might want it for, a quick 5-minute read kind of thing. So I like that variance in how you guys connect. When you were saying 33 times in a year, in my head I'm going, wow, so you're calling these people, because immediately my prospecting goes
right
to
the
cold call. Right to the phone, right? Because in essence, in our world, being North America wide for customers, the phone calls in the initial, or like an email introduction kind of thing. You know what I mean? So when you, I love that structure. What other structures do you have in real estate that you could reference to that would work in pretty much any sales industry?
Well, so we actually will take that structure that I just shared, and if I do meet somebody for the first time, say we meet at a networking event, we exchange business cards, or which is kind of a thing of the past, it seems like anymore. We'll get out our phone and we'll shoot each other, a message, and then attach our contact info to it. So that's a direct met. Now we haven't built a relationship yet. So what I'll do is I'll do exactly what you shared with something like the article. I'll find something of interest. And what my goal will be is to do an 8x8. So I'm going to stay in touch with that contact to build a relationship 8 times over 8 weeks to cement the relationship. And that's going to be the same thing. It's going to be a follow-up, thank you, great to meet you, just a quick note of reference. It was nice to meet you at this networking event. I felt that, I really appreciate what you shared with me. And then to follow up with that with an email, and then a phone call, and then a letter of or a note that connects us again, of something that we may have talked to each other about. So to build and cement the relationship, to then place them into the 33 touch, so we can continue that relationship over time. So now that's someone, as we know, when we're in our lead generation world, we look at a circle of people on the outside that we want to get into our core advocates. And once we can move people from someone we have not met, the general public, into someone who we have met, and then the next stage into someone who becomes a core advocate who will refer business to us. Because in the 33 touch that I mentioned, we know that by tracking and measuring, and the results that we've got and will get, is we're going to get a 12-to-2 ratio. So for every 12 people in that database, I'm going to get 2 pieces of business. It may not be the person who, this is my real estate world, so it may not be the person who that's in my database. They may not be buying or selling. However, they may work with someone who's buying and selling, or they may go to church with somebody that's buying and selling, or they may work out with somebody at the gym who's buying and selling real estate. And they refer my name to those people. So if I have, let's say, a database of 300 people, there are 36 opportunities there for me every single year. So if I build that up to 672 opportunities of business from my database every single year. So that's where I say the better quality and quantity that I have in my database, and the more I take care of them, they'll directly reflect the better quantity and quality of income I receive from that database.
I'm I'm actually, and as ignorant as it sounds, I'm blown away right now, because I love the fact that you go 8x8 and drop into the 33. I never once thought of real estate in that manner. Like I never once thought there was a back end process for real estate. And as I sit here and I say that, I'm kind of blowing myself away going, how could I not think that to be the reality? But just so everybody's aware, I had no idea. I love the fact that you have these structures in place. How does that help when it comes to structures, okay, so were you around when structures like that weren't in place, where it was kind of like a free-for-all? And then
Absolutely.
if you were, what is the difference between that free-for-all and a structured sales process?
So that's a great question. And I don't know if, put it this way, I was around and that structure wasn't in my world. It may have been out there. I hadn't yet found it.
Okay.
So you know,
in your perspective, it didn't exist. Exactly what I'm looking for. Exactly what I'm looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
So for you to be able to take that and then to go where you are now, I mean, to sit there and have a stat, because to me, statistics are everything. You can't figure out if you're growing until you start measuring things and really understanding. I mean, completely, you and I, we're on the same page there. We talked about that earlier. You know, the fact that you can sit and go, okay, yeah, you know, I know my ratio. If I have this many prospects, I'm going to land this many deals. That to me is gold in any business, because then it's just all about where are they coming in? How are you putting them in? And let's put them into the loop. So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
So
yeah. So I was attracted to this industry because, quite honestly, I don't know if I necessarily ran out of choices at the age of 27. Yet I didn't finish school. I ended up partying my way out of Ohio State University, and I ended up in a factory working where Lincoln Electric. I was building welding machines. They happen to be the world's largest manufacturer of arc welders, and I was working on heavy equipment in there for about 6 years, and looked around and said, "This is not my world. This is not where I'm going to spend the rest of my life." And my options were very few. You know, no college degree. I didn't have any experience. Yet real estate is a world that will take just anybody that happens to take 4 classes, passes the state and national test, and you know, can breathe. I had a pulse, so I got into real estate. I was blessed.
Pretty much the same thing for transportation too. So
yeah, well, you know, that's what I said. No one gets in. Hardly anyone gets into real estate on purpose. The ones though that stayed long and can stay the course and find their way in this industry can make a really good life out of it and a career and build a business. And I was blessed because I found something that I didn't even know that I was going to become passionate about. And it just fits me so well. And in the beginning, back to your question, in the beginning, I just threw an entrepreneurial spirit after it. I just looked at as I may have mentioned, my mom was in the business for about 10 years. And young and naive, I was like, my mom can do it, I can do it, you know, and I took it for granted. I didn't realize how hard she worked at it. And no one really does until they get into our business, especially with HGTV today. You know, it looks like, hey, this is simple. 30 minutes later, they're cashing a check for $60,000.
Yeah.
I don't know about Ontario. I believe your price for average sales price is probably a lot larger than ours here in Northeast Ohio. $175,000 is the average sale price here. So we have to sell a lot of properties to accumulate some wealth. So it's a unit-driven business. And your entrepreneurial spirit doesn't get it done. Because what I found was I would hit a ceiling and I didn't know how to break through that ceiling because I was winging it on purpose. I thought I had a strategy, yet I was doing it on my own. And I didn't have the process or systems and models to plug into that to follow on a consistent basis. I'd set a goal and I typically reach that goal because I work so damn hard. And I would just outwork everybody. Well, that's easy when you're 27, 28, 29, 30. I'm 53 now. I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. So as I started to actually just look for mentors in my life and look for people who have been where I want to go. I found that success leaves clues, and very often those people who have reached success, they start leaving breadcrumbs, if you will, for us to pick up behind. And one of the breadcrumbs was, one of the books that I picked up back in 2003, and that it was called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And now that Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, any one of the listeners that hear us today, anybody that checks that book out can see that book is a business plan. It's a systems and models to any business. Substitute real estate for transportation, for making pizzas. It doesn't matter. And that book is something to follow to set your business up. It's got a lead generation model. It's got an economic model. It's got an organizational model. So it sets you up to run a business. Prior to that, I was a sales agent. I was a salesperson. And if I wasn't out there hustling and making sales, I wasn't going to make any money.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
So I became a business person. And when I became a business person, I learned about leverage. I learned that I was able to actually build a business. And if I wanted to go on a 30-day vacation, check out of my business, if my business was still up and running, I was still making money.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a mindset. So I grew from that entrepreneurial person to being purposeful. And by having systems and models in place with that lead generation and knowing my numbers with the 8x8 and then the 33 touch, how many people I needed in my database to make the income that I desired to make. And if I desired to make more income than I had people in my database, then I needed to grow my database. Mm-hmm. It was that simple. I could re-engineer it and see what was the gap. If I had as I mentioned, if I had 300 people in my database and 36 transactions was going to get me where I wanted to go, great, I'm on track. Well, if I needed 72 transactions to earn the income that I desired to earn, well, then I have a gap, a 300-person gap that I needed to close that gap. And so I needed a strategy then to add people to my database on a daily basis and break it down to add a certain amount of people on a daily basis, week in, week out, over the course of a year.
I like that. And if I'm reading between the lines, it's when you figured out consistency was king when it came to your prospects, everybody that you brought forth into your, call it database, that consistency, to me, is where you started to see the big change in the end result.
Absolutely.
Is that fair to say?
It's very fair. Yeah. So, and that's where you framed my entrepreneurial to purposeful, in being consistent and being on purpose. And that consistency is what it was. It was also knowing what to be consistent about. Bang.
Right there. Okay. So let's talk from your end, because in the end, sales is sales is sales. Now, in our world in transportation, it's a very visual sale, meaning you go to a traffic manager, logistics manager, somebody in the marketplace that you're looking to do business. They have a boss, they have a budget, they have customers to serve. We go in, we sell our services, we get the business. It's a very visual decision. Your sale is one of the largest purchases people make ever. So visual, yeah. Deciding who to use, probably even more critical than our business, from an ease perspective, from everything. So share with us a little bit about that and how you found that consistency and I often say, once you have the consistency and you figure out the why, it's just fulfilling that why, which brings the sale to the next logical step, which is the close. The close for us, or for me anyways, once I've established and fulfilled the why, like I said, it's the next logical step. For you, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Sean, for the real estate world, I sit here and I say, okay, yes, you guys are all playing pretty much in the same market, right? The big variable from my market to yours is I can adjust my profit levels accordingly. There's a standard in the real estate world. Right. So your sales really come down to your consistency, you as an individual, and people will do business with people they like, know, and trust, right? Like we talked about it when it comes to Bob Berg's books and everything like that. But it's a like, know, and trust factor. So let's focus on that for a minute, because I do believe there's a massive element of that in transportation as well, because people will give you business, but they will give you a lot of business if they know, like, and trust you. So share with us, or focus in for the next couple of minutes here on that like, trust, and consistency factor.
So yeah, there are a lot of choices out there, and everybody. I don't know if everybody knows somebody in the transportation industry, yet everybody knows somebody that's in the real estate industry, if not a number of people. And I like to say that not all realtors are created equal. Just because we have a real estate license and we can, list your property or help you buy or sell or invest in real estate, doesn't mean the standards that we keep are equal. And that's where I think it is. It's the standards that we keep. How well do we take care of the process? Do we have a system, or are we winging it? Have we done this before? I like to, think that with 25 years of experience, that there isn't going to be a problem that may happen within our transaction from taking it from negotiating the contract to get accepted terms through to close. There won't be an issue that may arise that I haven't had to handle maybe 1,000 times before. And so because of that, I have systems and processes in place, and I know how to handle that. Now that's important. And the level of quality that I place towards that is going to be a direct reflection on how many referrals I get after the fact. It's because how well do we take care of somebody? We're not a salesperson as much as we are a consultant. And when we take that consultative approach to real estate, where we're doing something with servant leadership, if you will, throughout the process, and really taking care of our clientele, they will come full circle and want to refer others to their friends and family, want to refer their friends and family to us. Simply because we've taken care of them. And the systems that we've put in place are always being upgraded, if you will, because we fail forward. We will find mistakes along the way. We will have shortcomings along the way. As technology, it's ever advancing in our world. We have just recently we had one showing service get bought out by another showing service, and we've had recently I don't want to say a glitch, yet that transition hasn't been real smooth. Well, our clients don't care. If I could sit back and say, well, what do you mean you're not receiving the feedback? You should. We have it automatically set up. Email should take care of it. The processes are in place. Yet, if I just left it to technology and left the human factor out of it, I would be losing clients. They would not refer business to me in the future because of the fact that I just pointed the finger at technology dropping the ball rather than me as a human factor playing an integral part in that, taking care of them. I don't know if that makes sense. I kind of talked to myself.
No, that does. There was a key phrase in there that I want to bring back to the forefront, though, because it really piqued my interest in it. And it's when you said, you're more of a consultant role than a salesperson role. And that, to me, set bells off, because in my head I'm going, yeah, that's pretty much where you separate yourselves. And in the world of transportation, my gears are now turning to figure out how we can frame it in a more of a consultation perspective than a sales perspective, because I believe most people are open to positive feedback and encouraging feedback, where not very many people want to talk to a salesperson.
Correct.
Right? And, when you said, everybody knows a real estate agent, when we make a phone call to a logistics or traffic manager, 99% of the time, unless it's our first call of the day, they've heard from somebody that day. Right. They've definitely heard from somebody in the last 48 hours, right? So how do you differentiate yourself from those people? How do you really step right outside that usual spectrum of what they perceive as a salesperson, right? You approach it, in my opinion, now, you sit there and you approach it from a consulting perspective.
Right.
You phrase things. So, sorry, go.
What can I do for you? How can I help you? Is the consultative approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, phrasing it in different manners where it's not salesy, but it's you're bringing your authority in the marketplace because you understand it. You're bringing that education forward. You're bringing that different beliefs and philosophies forward in a sales frame as a consultant. I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it goes back full circle back to that database. So if we build that database and we use that database as our foundation to build on top of, you're taking your consultative approach to that database. Now, you've got people that you're doing business with. If you just take it for what it is and you keep on doing business with them and ignore the consultative approach, you may lose them because someone else may come in with an angle or a new consultative approach that you haven't shared with them. The database that we have is going to continue to do business with us and or refer business to us if we continue to take care of them. Now, I've got, let's call it 600 people in my database that are core advocates. Well, it's not their responsibility to stay in my database. It's not their responsibility to remember Sean Stewart when it comes to buy, sell, or invest in real estate.
It's your responsibility, 100%. Mm-hmm.
So I know that on average, because statistically, they're going to buy or sell or invest in real estate every 7 years. So I know those numbers. So I know of those 600 people, we can do simple math equations, and I know how many people I need to be in that database to hit the numbers I want to hit. I don't know when that person in my database is going to actually buy, sell, or invest in real estate. So I have to be paying attention to them year in, year out. That's why it's a monthly touch with an email, newsletter, and a direct mailer. It may be looking at my face on their way to the garbage can. It doesn't matter. It's a 3-second touch and I got it. They may delete my inbox newsletter, but that's okay. It's another memory peg. So that's twice that I hit them that month. I hit them on social media. They're going to see my social media. They're part of my group, that I'm marketing to through Facebook ads or whatever the case may be. And they're also going to get that direct phone call from me. Maybe it's an anniversary. Happy anniversary. Did you realize you bought your home 7 years ago? Who else do you know that might be looking to invest in real estate? Or don't even talk about real estate. How are the kids? Joey it must be a senior year. Is he going off to university? What's new in your life? Go through the Ford, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So that's, I think, critical and in regards to keeping that full circle and always being in that consultative approach. Weather related, we have a lot of seasons here in Cleveland, Ohio. We never know when we're going to get one of them. Sometimes it's spring and summer in November and December. Sometimes, we've got dead of winter here in March and April. Lake effect snow has hit us this past couple days, so we're digging out right now. However, we have opportunities to give our clientele calls back on a consultative approach, not looking for business.
Mm-hmm. I believe in that wholeheartedly. I've had prospects and opportunities that have not worked out for whichever reason. And, a month later they call back and they say, hey, listen, this really isn't working. I said, well, let's look at it. And I'll spend a couple hours with them looking at it and walk away, knowing I can't at this point still do business with them. I've got an old customer of mine that we're going to be speaking with tomorrow, where he's just got some concerns, and he actually has come to me because of my market knowledge of everything going on in the market, because he's concerned. This was a major bid that we did. We didn't win it. The hierarchies in the U.S. corporation decided that they wanted to go with a U.S. company as opposed to a Canadian company. No problem, understandable. And I said to him, anything you need, let me know. And right after that, he came back to me 6, 7, 8 times. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this? And, and I've had, Sean, I've had some people say to me, it's a waste of time. What are you doing? You need to move on. I said, no, obviously I'm not going to spend 4 hours a day on it, because I have things to do to generate more and more business and that perspective. But I also know that it's not, he's going to have somebody he knows, or there's going to be an opportunity down the line. Absolutely. And lo and behold, there's an opportunity coming down the line where he's front and center, and he sends me an email or a text message on Friday while I was at a keynote, and he says, listen, I think this is a massive opportunity for you. Can we talk on Tuesday? Right? But again, I didn't do it because I wanted something out of it. I did it because I really wanted him to get the best bang for what he was doing in the transition he was making. Right?
It's
so whether
the right thing to do.
1,000%, whether I got the sale or not, everything comes full circle. I'm a big believer in that. But it's doing without expecting at that point, right? Yes, this is what it is. This is what I can do for you. This is my understanding of, this is my knowledge of it. Go forth. Now you have more context, you have more information to make an educated decision, right? And in essence, I've always looked at real estate in that way. I don't know how many times, Sean, I've said to people, I've said, think about it like this. You go to and I talk a lot, and I preach a lot about education. Like, know your market, people. And anyone who's in sales, know your market and know the ins and outs. And when I wrote my first book, I looked at it as a business card, right? So I said, to everybody I was training, I said, think about it like this. You go into a real estate agent's office, and they sit down and they say, okay, so you want to buy a house? Yeah. Okay. Well, how much you want to spend? Before asking the pertinent questions, how many bedrooms, plans for your future family? What about plans for extending? Meaning, do you want, as simple as, do you want an electrical box in the garage so you can extend out? Do you want free panel? How much free panel do you want to extend out? Do you want to run electricity into the backyard? I know these are minor things, but I looked at it and I said, you ask all of these questions before asking what kind of price do you want, because if they're saying, I want this price, you have no context to share with them right up front, it's not going to work. If I wanted a 7-bedroom home and I wanted, a pool in the backyard, and I wanted the ability to put car chargers in the garage without having to put in a new panel. So I want a panel in the garage, and I want all this kind of stuff, but I want to pay $100,000 for it. You're going to look at me and you're going to say, okay, based on everything you want, really, before I even go and show you any houses that are going to be disgusting because they're going to need $100,000 worth of work just to be in that budget, guys, it's not going to work. Would your budget to make something like this work is going to be in the 200, 250 range? Just, hypothetically, I don't know a lot about the real estate market, but that was the approach I always took in business. I said, okay, well, what do you want? Like, when you close your eyes, what does the best business that you see look like? you know, your department, if you were to close your eyes and completely revamp your department, what would it look like? And then they come back and say, well, I want this, 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 and this. I said, okay, we go through it. And then they come out and they say, okay, but I want it for 20% less. And really at that point, Sean, our conversation stops, because I said, you won't be able to get all of this the way you want at that 20% discount. And let me share with you why. So you're going to get it every now and then at the 20% discount, but 98% of the time when you don't hit that 2% that you get it, you're going to have massive headaches. So if those headaches are worth the 20%, then go for it. Go with somebody in the market. I'm not your guy, but go for it. You'll find somebody in the market. But if you're looking at ease to get 98% of what you want, because there's always going to be a variable in everything you do, you know, you're in real estate, people walk in, they say, I love this house. I love this, this, this. I don't like the laundry room, but I'll overcome that. I'm giving up that 2%.
There are no 100% homes.
What exactly? 100%. You know, and from that point, I love that approach, because it's you know, that's the consultative approach, as opposed to how much are you looking to spend, right? Because I got commission breath and I want to really know how much money I'm going to make on this deal before we get into it, right? And in the end, those people, just like you said, those people are the ones that are going to come back. Those people are the ones that are going to say, man, you know, I sat with Sean, and for 35, 40 minutes, he really investigated as to what I want. You know, not only today, and I could see this more in real estate probably than in transportation, but not only today, but like, where do you want to be 10 years down the road? What, you know, are you planning a family? Are you growing? Is the family shrinking? Because if it is, and the family's shrinking in 5 years, you might want to think about a house like this. And that way you don't have to move and do all that. However, you can, you know what I mean? And that's where you come in as the consultative approach, because you understand your business. So very long way around to get to what I wanted to talk about, which was education in the market. How important do you see as education, knowing your market, knowing the maxes, the mins, what's happening, the strategies? Hey, listen, guys, it's becoming a buyer's market. Give it another 3 months. Let's talk again in 3 months. You'll have a buyer's market, as opposed to bringing somebody in just for the close.
Yeah, excellent question. I actually like to refer to myself as a local market. You know, I'm a local market economist of choice. You know, I'm not just a consultant, but the local market economist and of choice, because there are a lot of choices. You know, as we mentioned, you know, there's real estate agents everywhere. Not everybody knows the market. I mentioned earlier, not all real estate agents are created equal. Many, and good for them. And this is an industry that allows you to work part-time. You can put as much time as you want into it, or as little time as you want into it. Studying the market is critical. The ebb and flow of the market, knowing what's happening. You said in transportation, you kind of look at real estate. You know, we look at the automobile industry. You know, what's happening in the automobile industry? How's it going to affect, you know, what's happening in real estate? There are other factors in regards to school levies not passing, businesses moving out of town. I mean, the economy that, you know, has a lot to do with what happens in real estate. Now, fortunately, I think here in Northeast Ohio, we don't have a lot of very high peaks, yet we don't have any dramatic valleys. You know, we kind of stay pretty even. Now, when the market crashed, it crashed, and it hurt hard, everybody. And it wasn't like though on the coast where, you know, it crashed and people, you know, really crashed hard, but then it bounced right back and it went skyrocketed again. Here, we just kind of ebbed and flowed.
But that's valuable information for any customer coming to you and saying, listen, Sean, I'm really thinking of selling my house. You know, am I good now? Should I wait till spring? Am I really going to get that much more? So, you know, I get an extra 10 grand for it after commission, lawyer's fees. What am I really coming out with? You know, and at least you have the education on that of that to go back to them and say, well, no, it really doesn't. I mean, there's peaks and valleys. You could get an extra 10 grand. So you're going to walk away, you know, with an extra $1,100 in your pocket. If the $1,100 means that much to you, let's wait. If it doesn't, then, you know, we got some people that are interested.
Exactly. And that's the thing, you know, when my reference to the market on the each coast, well, that's what a lot of our homeowners are sitting in their house, they're watching television, and they're getting their real estate, you know, education from what they see and hear on TV or read in USA Today or whatever the case may be. They're not looking at it as a hyper local market. And when we're in real estate, we need to concentrate on a hyper local market, because the market in one side of the town might be different than the market in the other side of the town. Market and homes priced under 200,000 might be different between homes priced between 2 and 5. And then again, from 5 to $1 million is another price bracket that is going to differentiate. You know, we've been in a seller's market with very low inventory for a very long time now. Interest rates have been very low, and we continue to see that market most likely continuing on. However, we're coming out of seasonality, being in you know, fourth quarter to the first quarter, and we're heading into what should be a strong market again, and we're still dealing with such low inventory that it may be again a seller's market for the remainder of the year. And yet, if we're not paying attention to the amount of inventory and how it comes on the market and leaves the market, then, you know, we're going to miss the boat, because the numbers tell a story. And the numbers are the language of business. And if we're not paying attention to those numbers, if we're not articulating that in a way that our customer understands it, then they're not going to price their home properly to sell in that market. Just because it's a seller's market doesn't mean you can overprice your home by 10% and a buyer's going to come in and swoop in and take it. It's not going to happen. Yet, unwittingly, many people believe that that's the case. There's so many things.
I've always said, and I'd love your thoughts on this, you know, I've always said when it comes to real estate, and you know, call it anything you sell, it's not what you think it's worth, it's what somebody else thinks it's worth.
Well, it's not what you think it's worth, it's what the buyer thinks it's worth, and in real estate, what the appraiser thinks it's worth.
That's true, yes. Yeah, we had a major market fluctuation here in Ontario. And it was to the point where, you know, around my neighborhood, there was houses that literally sold for 70,000 above asking.
Right.
Just major price wars up in the country where I live. And, you know, it came to a point where we have, you know, everybody knows a real estate agent. We have friends in real estate.
Right.
And they were saying, yeah, there's banks that are saying, no, we're not giving you a mortgage. The house isn't worth that. You can put an extra 50 grand down and then it'll bring it in line. But, you know, we're not just because you were approved for $1 million mortgage and you bought a house for 900,000, that house is actually worth like 7. It's not worth 9. It's such an inflated market. You know, people actually had their mortgages and had to cancel out on deals. And then that's a whole other, you know, world of hurt, because as a buyer, they didn't educate themselves on that end of the market, right? They got so caught up. And listen, I mean,
it's a motion of logic, you know.
Yes.
And the bank and the appraisers are looking at everything logically. They're a business, and they have a short, you know, we have short memories. They have long memories, and you know, they remembered, you know, 2007 and 8 and 9 and 10. And you know, you guys do a heck of a lot better job in regards to the way you finance properties, the way your banks run compared to how we do in the United States. We got burned bad, and you know, we've tightened things up in regards to the regulations on how we are giving loans today. Yet at the same time, it's still very easy for someone to get a loan, and that's why the appraisal is such an important part. We as sellers, and even real estate agents, you know, many real estate agents will get caught up in the same emotion with their buyers and their sellers. The appraiser and the bank will come in with a logical approach. I know that I need, as a consultant, to be that voice of reason. I need to be that voice of reason, to be the educator and to be the consultant through the process, and let my buyer and or my seller know, listen, we're offering or we're accepting a price that just may not appraise. Don't get too excited yet. You know, if it doesn't appraise, then we don't have a deal. The buyer's going to have to come out of pocket, or you're going to have to lower what you're willing to accept. Which one's it going to be? I don't know. It may be the third, neither. And we're back to square one. And we know that our value is inflated, so we need to adjust our list price possibly even before we're going to get a sale.
It makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, it totally does. You know, we only got a couple of minutes left here, but so in closing, you know, I'd like to go back to the beginning of the conversation when we talked about, and we started to talk, where you started to share a lot of that strategy, pre-strategy, new strategy, 8x8, 32 or 33. What's the difference?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
So what's the difference before you had your strategies, when they, you know, for 8 weeks, you make 8 connections and then you drop them into the 33 annually?
I didn't have a predictable business. You know, I didn't know what was going to show up at the end of the year. You know, I set goals and, you know, put something in writing, and, you know, remarkably, it was amazing how, you know, I would get close to those goals without a plan. Yet with the having a system in place, I can actually put a plan together, and it's really easy to put that plan together. And I actually have the system for the plan that breaks it all down to one page, because we've got this simple things such as the way to generate leads, and to get, you know, once we get a lead and we are able to, we have, you know, our numbers down to my conversion is at 80%. Get a lead, you know, I convert that lead 80% of the time. They're going to end up working with me, and, you know, 80% of the time, actually a little bit higher, you know, when we get that lead, it's going to convert into a sale about 90% of the time. So we can work those conversions. And when we have that, it's night and day compared to what it was like before, when, you know, hope and a wish was my business plan. You know, I had a goal in my head on paper, but then it went in a desk drawer, and I maybe revisited, how close did I get to my goal? Well, now, you know, I've got a goal that I look at on a daily basis and a weekly basis and a monthly, quarterly, you know, on and on. Look at my goal overall as a GPS: goal, priority, and strategy. One goal, three priorities, and 5 strategies at a minimum underneath each one of those priorities. So 1, 3, and 5. So I've got that one goal to shoot for. And you know, if I've got priorities being my buyers and my sellers, and updating my database, or actually updating my technology with my database, right now is what we're working on. Then I've got strategies underneath each one of those: buyer side, seller side, and my database side. Those are the areas that I'm focused on. And I know I can work on those strategies that will move me up to make sure that I conquer the goals that I have for each one of my priorities, to get me to the goal, which is either a volume or a GCI, or, you know, unit goal at the end of the year. What is great is I can move that goals, that GPS, over to a single sheet of paper that I call 411. And because I've got 4 weeks to reach 1 month, to reach 1 year. And so that 411 just slides right in. So I know, did I conquer what I needed to do? Did I accomplish what I needed to do in week 1 of the month? Did I accomplish what I needed to do in week 2 to get me to what I need to If I need 4 sales in the month of January, did I get a sale in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4? If I'm sitting here on the 15th of the month and I only have 1 sale and I know I'm 1 down, well, I could do a 15-day protocol. Okay, so I could look at what I've done so far this month, in the first 14, 15 days, and I can adjust my activities to reach my goal by the end of the month. So if I accomplish that month and I can win that month, then I'm that much closer to winning the year. So I look at the year as a 12-game, if you will, season. If I can win each month, or if I can go 10-2, I'm going to have a winning season, and I'm going to be able to accomplish the goals I'm looking to accomplish. And I break each month down by a quarter, like a football game. I have a first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And so I can study the first week, the second week, and what I like to look at it's 4 conversations. What I do the first week, what I do the second week. What's my wall of value? What kind of value am I bringing my people? So I make sure between week 2 and 3, I concentrate on what value we're bringing. And then I go week 3, week 4, we're looking also at, are we hitting the numbers? Are we building onto our database? Are we doing the activities that we need to do to get the results that we desire to get? So it all plays together.
That is awesome. That's a perfect way to end the conversation, because that's a dynamic way. I love your strategy. I love the way you look at it. I love the way you look at it every day. How many people set out at the beginning of the year with this great big goal, and come the end of Q3, they're going, oh my God, I'm so far away from it. And then they get all stressed out for Q4. That's when they start, trying to pound out more sales than could ever possibly happen. Customers start to realize, yeah, you're really not in it for me. You're in it to make quota, blah, blah. It's the infamous one where you start hearing from your car salesperson towards the end of the month. It's like, oh, they got to make quota. Here we go.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, I appreciate you so much for being here, Sean. I've written a lot down today. I love those strategies. I love your GPS. I love your 135. I love your 8x8. I love your 33. I love your 4 quarters, your 411. You got gave a lot of people a lot of things to think about, my friend.
My pleasure. I loved it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a great time, and we will definitely be chatting with you soon.